All right. Let's talk creativity. I'm joined today with by Nick Strickland. He's a videographer, content creator, rap phenomenon, and theater connoisseur. Nick, welcome.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah, this whole podcast series is really about creativity and kind of the process of creativity. And I don't think that I know anybody who's more creative than you, so this is a really good place to start the conversation. Um, Talk to me a little bit about Time Theater Company.
About Time Theater Company. It's seven of my friends, well, six of my friends plus me. They are all theater people who thought Des Moines was, missing a certain kind of performance. Um, Things that are a little more out of the box, a little edgier, the shows that don't play it as safe, maybe make people a little uneasy. Uh, Also things that are just super silly and weird. So with our next show is more in that lane. But we all sort of came together, and I'm kind of the odd man out. I've done a little theater in my life, but I rely on these guys a lot to teach me about theater.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of the show posters of some of the things that have either happened recently or about to happen or happening a little bit later in the fall. So White Rabbit, Red Rabbit. This was a production that you all put on back in April. What
Yes.
what was this? I've heard that every show was different, but I didn't totally get kind of how that would all come together.
So this is a very unique experience. The script is written to be read for the first time on stage in front of an audience. So it's an Iranian playwright who was kind of landlocked in his country. He refused to do the mandatory military service that people go through, which meant that he couldn't get a passport and he couldn't travel the world as he had hoped to. So he wrote a script that he travels the world for him. And it's a unique performance where, we recruit actors to sort of take the plunge and step up on a stage, not knowing where the night's going to lead. And the audience is kind of in the same boat. They open up an envelope, take out the script, start reading. But it explored themes of, uh, oppression and groupthink and self-harm and some really fun, lighthearted things. But this was right around the time that, the Iran war was pretty fresh, and it seemed like a pretty timely show to be doing.
Yeah, so over the course of those 4 nights, then you had different actors playing the role of that persona and working through kind of that. Was it like a monologue essentially
It's
that
it's a
was happening?
monologue. There is some audience participation. People get pulled up on stage. People are asked to participate in a variety of ways. So,
Interesting.
and there were four dates of the show, but I think we actually had seven performances. So
Okay.
we found seven brave souls to go up there and step into the unknown.
Very cool. And then coming up later this month, you've got Gutenberg the musical.
Yes.
So give us a little bit of a background on what this is.
So Gutenberg the musical is it's a two-man musical comedy about aspiring playwrights who named Bud and Doug, and Bud and Doug want to make a musical about Johannes Gutenberg and his printing press. There is little to no historical value in the show. They are totally making it up out of thin air and conjuring things and scenarios that didn't really happen, don't really bear any resemblance to actual history, but it is fun and whimsical, and the music is good. And this is one that I feel like it's a 90-minute show. It's not going to be super heavy, just something to go in and have fun and feel good about.
Yeah, so with that sort of spontaneousness of the actual script, are there elements of improv? Was it just written like that where the facts aren't facting, so to speak?
Right, right. It was written that way. And when it was on Broadway here a couple years ago with the same leads as the Book of Mormon. It was Joshua Gad and Andrew Rannells. played the only two actors that are in the show. Now there's only two actors, but there are dozens and dozens of characters, and it's a very sort of lo-fi show. There's not a huge set, there's not a ton of props. The props that we do have are a lot of baseball caps with different characters' names on them. So they're switching characters, they're switching voices and personas as they sort of conjure up these scenarios in their head as the musical goes along.
That's cool. And so that's going to be June 19th through the 28th. It wraps around a couple weekends, right? So
Yes.
just is it over the weekends or is it going to play through the week as
It's
well?
a Friday, Saturday, Sunday for 2 weeks. So
Very
good, some
cool.
good matinee options on Sunday. I'd highly recommend going to see it. And we're doing it at the Des Moines Playhouse, which is going to be a treat.
Yeah. So this is the Black Box Theater, right? So is that a different space than what I would typically think of about the Playhouse itself, or is that the main theater room?
You probably, if you've gone to a show in the main room, it is a different room than that. They have recently sort of done some renovations to the black box. It's a very nice space, but a little bit different than that main room. Uh,
Nice.
uh.
So a little bit different than White Rabbit, Red Rabbit, which was down at XBK's Annex. Interesting. Talk to me a little bit about, when you have these performances in different spaces, like how does the performance, you know, change or adapt or evolve in those spaces?
So we're kind of in a unique position where we are a theater company without a home. A lot of the other theater companies in town have an established place, and they sort of make their season schedule to tailored to that space. We're kind of homeless, so we look for the spaces, we look for the shows that we like, and try to figure out if there's a space that fits. Our very first show, the only show that we did last year, was a play called Squeamish, which was also kind of heavy, explored some darker themes of, suicide, self-harm, blood drinking, chemical dependency. It's a weird show. And when we were looking for a place to do it, we were it was kind of a guys' night out, and we stumbled into this sort of novelty bar called The Haunt, which is horror themed. When it's not being used as a bar, it's part of the Slaughterhouse uh, haunted house that Ian Miller puts on. So it's everything is spooky on the walls and the ceilings and gory, and we're like, this might be the good place to do Squeamish. So we talked to the owner, and about it. And one thing that was nice in that play is there's a thread of they talk about sort of the sensory smell of peppermint. That's something that weaves through it. Well, this bar was already equipped with kind of smell-o-vision where you could pump different scents into the room. So he was like, "Yeah, I'll just, buy a canister of peppermint, and when the time's right in the play, we'll just pump that into the room." And it just added a whole new layer to the experience for the audience, I think. That was the perfect place to do it.
That's awesome. And so then, a little bit earlier in the fall coming up, is the third piece of the 2026 show schedule, Building the Wall. Talk about this one a little bit.
So this one, it's another sort of heavy one for our current times. It was written during the first Trump administration about immigration detention centers, uh, sort of what happens, who's responsible for things when decisions are made, and what happens to people when they're displaced. And I wish it wasn't so timely now, but it has come back around where I feel like this is going to be a very, very relevant performance leading up to we'll be having our shows right before the next general election. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have a location for that one yet, or is that still in the works?
still in the works. So yeah, if,
Okay,
if you got some bleak concrete locations in mind, let us know.
right on. Uh, I mean, it's interesting stuff, and I mean, it feels like this is the next step. You've been involved with 40 Hour Film Fest for what seems like. more than a decade at this point. I mean, this has
It's
been going on for a while.
it's more than 2 decades, dude.
Whoa, woof.
I
That's a lot of films.
I think 2005 was the first year in Des Moines, and I have
Okay.
participated every year except for two, one for the year my son was born and one for COVID. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I've been at all of them.
So how did you get involved with it initially, the 4 Day Film Fest?
I was working at an AV rental place called Pratt Audiovisual, and one of my coworkers had heard about it, and he said, "Hey, I'm getting a team together. Would you want to be part of it?" And I was pretty much the editor on that team. I did a little bit of shooting too, but had so much fun with that. I ended up staying with that team for a few years, and then I said, I think this would be a fun thing to lead on my own. So I branched off and started my own team, and been doing it ever since.
Right. And I mean, it's taken you kind of all over the world in some regards. I mean, these 40-hour film fests, for those who may not have seen this, you can win at the local level, kind of goes up towards a regional and national level, and even international. So, I know that you all went down to Taos, which seems like forever ago, but it was probably 10 years or something like that.
14.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Time goes by quickly.
It does.
What was that for? Which of the 40-hour film fest films was that?
So for those who don't know, 48-hour film, you get 48 hours to write, shoot, and edit a film. At the kickoff event, you pull out a genre out of a hat. You say, I get horror, or I get musical, and you've got to use this main character, or not main character necessarily, but you get a character, a line of dialogue, and a prop that all need to be incorporated into the story. And that sort of helps you know that they actually made it that weekend, and that wasn't a script that they'd been working on all summer. So that year, I'd always wanted to get musical because you and I have been in a band together. We're
Hmm.
musical
Hmm.
people. I
Hmm.
have people on my team who enjoy music. So I said that year, hey, whatever we get, let's make it a musical. So we pulled drama that year and we said, okay, it's going to be a musical drama. We called it O Drama. It was a hip opera about the lives of high school students. And we got a school to shoot in and wrote some fun raps to it and some good singing. And it all came together in a really nice way. So that was the film we ended up winning Best of City in Des Moines, went on to the international competition in Taos,
Okay.
where,
So the international competition really does move around from place to place.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. I mean, what's crazy to me is, when I think about the teams that you've worked with over the years. I mean, you've got a lot of creative people in these teams. Uh, It's sort of the best of the best. I mean, I sometimes I feel bad for other teams that are coming together for the first time and having to like take on, this absolute juggernaut that is, your 40-hour film fest team, because you're gonna have like really, really creative people who have done this for a while. Um, what's that like having to work with a bunch of other probably relatively strong-willed, strong-minded, creative folks in such a compacted space like the 4 Day Film Fest?
It's interesting, and our team dynamic is probably different from any other team. I've participated with other teams just sort of as a worker bee, and I think on most teams the dynamic is there's the team leader who is the creative vision and the shot caller and the person who's writing the script, framing the shots. I am a lot different. I think my core competency is attracting people who make me look good. Uh, People who want to participate. I try to make the weekend fun and collaborative. Uh, that does it helps and it hinders. So I think it's good for inviting talented people in, but it's also sometimes it's hard to get a script written or a concept decided on because there's a lot of voices in the room, and um, I, I'm not that assertive voice that is saying yes, no, we're doing this, we're not doing that. So ours is more of a collaborative, laid back, just to sort of go along for the ride type vibe.
Yeah. So how do you know which battles to essentially fight, which ones to let go in that process?
I think I am very motivated by the clock as it's going. So, if it's 11 o'clock on Friday night and we don't have our script or our story decided on, that's when I can get a little, okay, let's put this idea for the side to the side for now. Maybe that comes back next year, but we're going to focus on this one. We've already locked in this location. We know these actors are available. I think we can get these props. This one seems the most feasible. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm thinking about it, it's like Friday night, you're getting sort of your bearings around, what you're trying to create. So, you're getting all the elements of what your 48-hour film fest film needs to include. You're kind of starting to put that structure, that skeleton of a script together. Probably some of the pre-production starting to happen of like, okay, where are we going to go find things? Then is Saturday generally your shoot date? Like,
Yep, that's how we usually do it. I know some teams are so ahead of the curve that they start shooting Friday night. We have
wow,
never done that. Not a single time. And more often than not, we wrap at the end of Saturday so we can just spend Sunday getting the post-production all buttoned up. There have been a few times where we've had to shoot something Sunday morning, but that is not ideal. Because one of the things that we have that is nice is a sound mixer. He lives in California, where he does this sort of stuff professionally. But in order for him to do his job, we try to have the picture locked, which means there's no more edits that happen after noon on Sunday. That way I can say, here's all the audio files, mix these to sound perfect, and when he sends them back, they're going to line up perfectly in sync with what we've done.
nice. So, I mean, thinking about, the moments where that creativity is probably most stressful, it feels like Friday night's probably a pretty stressful moment because, you're really setting the direction of everything. And then, everything else, if Friday night goes well, it feels like, Saturday should go pretty well. Sunday probably comes down to the wire a bit, but if that creativity isn't flowing on Friday, how do you activate it? What are some of the things that kind of help get the ideas going, get the things locking in? Because, I've watched a lot of these films over the years, and it feels like generally, you'd be hard pressed to tell that. Now, there are some that feel like they definitely came together in 48 hours, but for the most part, it feels like these have been, they've got some room to breathe. They feel like pretty good ideas generally, across sort of that competitive landscape. So, like, how do you activate that creativity in the moment?
That's a great question, and it happens differently every year, but usually, there's a voice that speaks up. A few years back, the last time we won Best of City, we got sports film and we were throwing around a lot of ideas and nothing quite seemed right. And somebody brought up the 1980s arm wrestling movie Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone, which we brought up on the TV to watch some clips, and we're like, you know what? That's a vibe that I think we could go with. So we did a thumb wrestling kind of version of that, little bit of Karate Kid in there. But we decided, okay, we're inspired by this. We're going to go 80s cornball sports movie.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, in that moment, you had something that kind of was that catalyst to get the idea going. Are there other situations where you're trying to draw some inspiration to get, a film script started? Like what do you draw on? Are the elements that they give you to work with enough, or do you have to really kind of, go further with them?
I think the elements are what we keep returning to when we're trying to, brainstorm, what fits the genre? How can we use the prop? What is a funny situation to put this type of character in? How are we going to deliver this line of dialogue in a meaningful way? And some years we do a better job than others, but that's as an audience member, when somebody, uses that line of dialogue in a key moment or in a, to reveal some information or to twist the story in a key way and they pull it off. It's like, that's, it's like extra like degree of difficulty points for that. Or, oh, that prop came in an unexpected way. Because a lot of years you'll see teams use the prop or the line of dialogue in, 50% of the teams will use it in the same way. They'll make the same joke. They'll have the same it's watching those films that sort of think outside the box a little bit more, where you're like, okay, that you should get a little bonus for that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there are moments where the team just gets into that creative funk. It's like maybe an idea seemed like it was going down the right path, but it just hits a wall. How does the team kind of walk itself back or turn itself around in those moments?
The worst wall I can remember is one year we had. I'm usually on the writers team, but this year I had not put myself on it for whatever reason. I was on the phone trying to get locations and actors and so figure all that stuff off. They wrote a script that it was all about a underground bingo league, like in a secret speakeasy kind of thing, and it
Oh,
was a very funny script, but we didn't have any bingo equipment. We didn't have access to underground bar locations. So it was just like you go through the script and it's just like I don't know how we were going to visually accomplish any of this without these things. So at like 1 o'clock in the morning, we tore up that script and started new. And at that point, people are getting tired and we didn't have time to flesh out a whole script. We had to be ready to get up early and start shooting. So we more made a loose structure for it was a mockumentary about a 48-hour film team making a film where the genre that they drew was pornography.
uh-huh.
And that allowed us to, we kind of knew the points along the story, but as we set up the interviews and the scenarios, there was a lot of flexibility for improving, for, just as long as we end on this note, we can do whatever we want in between in the scene. And that worked out pretty well for us that year.
That's fantastic. And it would work within the concept because you essentially drew documentary,
It was
uh
mockumentary, yeah.
mockumentary. So like you're able to work with that and that was an interesting switch. I don't know that I ever heard that story of how it started. I
Yep.
remember how the film ended and it was fantastic, but I never quite got the story of how you guys got there. So that's cool. Um, what would you say are like the biggest misconceptions uh, about, the creative process?
Man, I mean, it's different for every person. I'm reading a book right now that Rick Rubin, famous
Mm,
music
mm,
producer, wrote about the creative process, and it's just it's a lot of insightful stuff, but it doesn't all. There is no cohesive, coherent, one size fits all process. There's just different people work in different ways, and I've certainly had creative funks and slumps, but just finding a way to stay in that beginner's mind and look at things in a new way and try to challenge yourself to think outside of the box. I think that's and also, finding the willpower to actually do a project. That's one thing I love about 48-hour film is because I can sit and think about a short film I'd like to make for years and work on the
mm.
script and tinker and take this in and take this out and this just forces you to get off your butt and go do it. And I feel like that is sort of the key to most creative endeavors. And I wish I could incorporate that into more of my creative pursuits.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you've done this for more than 2 decades, if you could go back to, uh, the Nick that was starting this whole thing 20 years ago, like what advice would you give him? Like what would you say you know now that can either make the process better, make the ideas better, whatever that is, the thing that you're like, man, I wish I would have known that then.
Th- This is the advice I give myself, and still the advice I give myself today is to just like simplify, simplify, simplify. Like, do not overcomplicate it. find a simple story you can tell in a few locations with, minimal plot points and just let it breathe. The very first year that I had my own 48-hour film team, we wrote a script that I believe had 8 different locations. It followed these two characters sort of through human history and all of these different eras. And somehow we made it work, but it was the whole day was, unloading gear, setting gear up, tearing gear down, putting it back in the car, driving somewhere, taking the gear out, setting it up just over and over and over again. Our We had a costume designer who stayed up all night. Emily Ganfield did a great job making, 16 outfits that night. Never again, never again.
Yeah, that's crazy. So simplify, keep it simple. Those are good words. So, you know, obviously for about time, you've got the Gutenberg the musical coming up the weekend of June 19th and 28th. That's going to be awesome at the Black Box Theater at the Playhouse. And
Yes,
then
sir.
coming up early fall, September 25th through October 4th, Building in the Wall. That's going to be cool. Stuff for people to check out. So, thanks for taking the time to talk. I appreciate the perspective on creativity and all that. I'm excited to see how Gutenberg comes together and building the wall thereafter, and can't wait to get back to the Fleur Cinema to check out this year's 40-hour film fest.
So I appreciate you letting me on. And Duke, you are my favorite creative partner I've had. Having me on for this has been a delight.
Right on. All right, cool. Good talk. See ya.